I'm that girl who just relishes in special days and special moments and special events. And today is spectacular for so many reasons. So I'm going to call you my soul family. And I'm just going to call you my family, my fam. And I'm just going to use this video today as kind of like a personal dear diary, just so I can share with those who I love and who appreciate my journey, to be able to just give you a little rundown of these fantastical, phenomenal, fantastic, fabulous, whatever. For me, it was cool. So I just want to kind of verb it out and just vent it out with you, so I can be able to kind of process this journey myself. So anyway, interesting. We got a visitor yesterday, which was super ridiculously prickly. A little baby hedgehog, which was just like, oh, it was so exciting. The kids were super excited. And they're just so adorable with their teeny little feet as they just like along. So it was an adventure. And I just thought, oh my gosh, isn't there so many things that have outrageous amounts of prickles, and yet they are quite sweet. And I was sort of thinking, now, what do I know about hedgehogs, right? I know this, that when our children get to choose one toy from the toy shop, Olive will try to find the biggest thing that can change color and have as much kind of like gooey substances of like slime and glitter and a whole wardrobe, and then a lot of other like little knickknacks to go to some little troll baby or something, right? So that's Olive. Ivy will find the sweetest little stuffed animal. And so she chose one time to get a hedgehog, which was like, it does nothing. It just sits there, it does nothing. And oh my gosh, the attention and love and care that she would give for this hedgehog. Now, there were doll babies, there was a whole lot of ranges of unicorns and all sorts of bits and pieces, but this one hedgehog was just her big thing, to the point where I was like, it's a dud. Like, that's not my choice, but respecting all. And so it was very interesting. And so to the point where we went again, like a month or so later, back to the toy store, and they got the same opportunity, and Olive again went to find the biggest whatever unicorn mix of blah blah, and then Ivy found a baby hedgehog to go with her hedgehog. And so it was like, we're starting to accumulate a hedgehog family, which is interesting. Even if I showed her like Sylvanian toys, I don't even know if she would want to go for that. So there was something really special about the hedgehog family. And it was weird because it was like, this is a gift that you can get for yourself, Ivy. And she was like, no, I want to use my gift to get the hedgehog that I have at home, a baby. Okay. So anyway, in terms of hedgehogs, like official hedgehogs, I think I know a little bit, and it's about, I think they're sort of known if you see them during the day, they're super sick and they contain a lot of diseases, potentially. Do we trust stuff that we Google anymore? I don't know. I don't feel like I want to be called into doing it. I kind of energetically felt into it. And it was like, just this kid, I was going to say like this kind of like this adolescent, kind of pushing the boundaries, teenage baby hedgehog, I'm gonna do my own thing, mom and dad, I'm cool, I can go out and adventure kind of towards, it was almost sunsetting time. So anyway, I didn't feel like it was diseased. I feel like it was just curious and wanting to explore more, maybe get scared of the dark. I don't quite know, but it just made me think of a whole lot of things, right? And it made me think of how incredibly soft and delicate and gentle they are. Maybe if you're a snail, you'd probably think they were like the devil, and not so gentle. But when she was running around our garden, exploring and checking out the kids' toys and all that sort of stuff. It did seem very cute and innocent, and maybe I'm completely disease-ridden now and completely clueless to this menace that was in my garden. But for that moment, I just thought, look, another prickly cactus with legs, how cute. And, you know, we let it go into sort of like the valley, which is near our home, and, you know, live its best valley life. Anyway, random, right? So interesting things happening to sort of make me think of different perspectives, that's for sure. So we went out as a family to Papa, which is the New Zealand, I think it's National Museum, but it's just here in Wellington, and it's not discriminating anymore, which is fantastic. So we wanted to go and take the kids and have some fun. And we got to see some fantastic artwork from Rita Angus. And I've always sort of been aware of her because she's New Zealander, but when I was looking at the arts when I was younger, the books that we were sort of able to get was not about any New Zealand artists at all. I don't know how old I was when I realized that there were actually New Zealand artists, because all of the books that I was looking at, because there was no internet, because I am 46, back in my primary school years, it was just about the greats and the big influences and, you know, the movements of art. And so I was completely oblivious to New Zealanders and even modern art in terms of, yeah, just no postmodernism, blah, 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 blah. So it was just so extraordinary to be around people and absorbing the culture and the beauty of her art, and her landscapes were just divine and just so on point and just so special and lovely. And she did quite a few portraits, which was really, really nice. And I got to feel her energy, and she felt very humble and very pleased that you know, people were admiring her, but, you know, a greater body of, I think this was the biggest collection of all her work together in one kind of viewing. And she did sort of feel, you know, quite happy that people were perusing around and seeing life in watercolors and, you know, larger than life sort of scale through projections of her work on big walls and things like that. It was quite sort of grandeur. She liked it. But then she also sort of said, you know, gosh, it was a struggle for me financially to get my work out and to be known as much as I'd wanted. And, you know, you've got to be bloody dead to be appreciated, is basically what she sort of said to this sort of scale, you know. So I kind of, yeah, had a conversation with her about that, and it was just really nice. And she was sort of like, yeah, you want and strive for this when you're living, and yet she sort of thinks it would have gone to her head and she wouldn't have been able to focus on the pure creativity. So it was fun. And then the kids got Easter donuts, and it was all just, you know, it was just such a great, joyous time out. And then I got to see lots of garments that had all different types of feathers and adornments and sort of like in patterns and stuff. And I just sort of, it was so beautiful, but I also sort of thought those poor naked birds, right? Those poor naked birds taken because of their beauty and used as fashion. So, you know, there was lots going on in my head, and it was fantastic. And I still was sort of pondering about, you know, the statements from Jesus and the collectives of, you know, what are we really waiting for to really step up and share our truths with people, and to, you know, share our radical thoughts such as, you know, reincarnation and a whole lot of other sort of stuff. So, you know, I've just been just delightfully in the now moment. And so anyway, heaps of other stuff happened during the day, but I won't bore you to death with my true dear diary tragedies of, you know, how lame my life is, but I still love it. But one of the fantastic things is that I got to remember through a sweet friend is, you know, do checking on in my routines. And I realized that I actually used to love drinking cacao. And I think it's how you pronounce it. And so I used to go and do these like really fun, sound therapy events where there was cacao drinking, and it was just, high vibrational people coming together, sharing the space, have a ceremony, cacao drink, and just really be in one with the moment, and, really just transcend their energy, and to be able to project out lots of, high vibrational healing and love for our communities and beyond, and smother the world with our love, right? We can smother the shit out of anything with love when we choose, right? Totally we can be helicopter parent to the world. And that kind of frustrates us sometimes when we're like, are we ready to mature yet? Are we ready to like step into 5D with our jazz hands? And, we're all like super excited and all ready to go. But most of humanity isn't, right? And that is fine. They still need to have big experiences. So I've ordered myself more cacao, ceremony cacao powder stuff, which is really yummy. And so I have it with, it's just like a chocolate, but it's not a chocolate. And it's just, anyway, I'm excited because I did realize I actually wasn't that convinced that the caffeine was giving me something good. It was just a hobby and a habit. Do it in the morning kind of thing, something warm and kind of get my body moving, but not really moving. So I would love to be able to replace my caffeine with, I guess there is still caffeine in these cacao concoctions, because it is kind of like it is in between a coffee bean, I think, and a cocoa bean. So don't shoot my ignorance if I'm completely wrong, because this is a Dear Diary thing. I can say whatever, right? So there's that. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about that. And then I remembered I had a whole packet in my pantry that I'd forgotten about. And so last night I had some, and this morning I've had some, and I'm just feeling like really, really, really good. I'm feeling like hot chocolate inside me kind of thing without having the sugars in the hot chocolate. So yay. And the other reason is because, and this is kind of a big deal, and I don't know if I wanted to go too personal with it or not, but it's my Dear Diary, so it's kind of full confession. Living with this and my journey, you can imagine that my partner has gone through it, right? Like, he was here with me when I started hearing about the broadcast, and he was here with me the day the broadcast didn't happen. So that was a hot fucking mess, wasn't it? And then he's seen me come out of sessions where I have been hysterically crying, so crying that my eyeballs, I think my mother would say, look like piss holes in the sand. So like massively swollen face, crying so much. And there has been some sessions where it has been so emotionally intensive that as soon as I come out of the session, I'm just hysterical. Super, super, super hysterical, and cannot, it takes quite some days sometimes. So there were some trapped beings that we heard about through our friend and another practitioner friend of mine. We did a session to see what was going on with these. What was there? Like, we're hearing gossip that there is some trapped beings here, and we were not prepared at all for what we experienced. And I think I assumed it was too painful for me to even listen back to that session. And when I think I did months and months and months and down the track, it actually wasn't as impactful. Like, you could hear we were sort of doing snot bubbles, but it really wasn't that wow, the impactful. It was like, cool, those beings are being released. That's bizarre that those beings were trapped in the first place for a very long time and were lost. And if you've been on this journey with us, you would know exactly what I was referring to. And so I come out of that, and I'm trying to prep myself out of this session, and it's really obvious that I've gone through something, and it wasn't a very long session too. So my partner was just like, what on earth have you, like, that's insanely intensive. And it was really, so he has seen my journey. Okay, so I don't need to mansplain it, you can imagine. And when you don't listen to these sessions and you're hearing snippets of it, because it was so hard to even, like, as you guys know, when you're talking to someone who doesn't listen to this work, he did have some sessions with me at the beginning as I was finding anyone that was breathing to come and do sessions with me, because I just was so passionate, even back then, all that time ago, to be able to understand this work and to be able to see what was happening. And so I know he'd broken his wrist. I know he had a few other things going on for him. And so I wanted to be able to really focus and heal things. I was able to remove like heavy metals from his body back then and a whole lot of stuff. So interesting about that. I hope I can remember this again, talking to you guys. So about heavy metals in the body. So anyway, people who, I'm just going to say it now because I think I'm going to forget, because there's so much I want to share with you, dear diary, is that people who, he doesn't vape, he doesn't smoke, and he doesn't vape, right? So I'm coming to the point to say last night we had a session together. So because as you can imagine, I was still quite new at doing these sessions when I started with him, right? I did 2 with him really early on, and our baby was still breastfeeding and super little and all this stuff. So we had a lot of distractions, and I was, yeah, I'll get to how crap I was when I was practicing with him, right? So I'm just going to talk about vaping smoke, right? Remember, he doesn't smoke, but he had to walk when he was working in the offices. He was going backwards and forwards to these different buildings, and people were vaping in between, and he would smell the vaping smoke. And when yesterday I asked the subconscious, any heavy metals in the body, knowing that they removed it last time, they said, yeah, he's got a little bit. And I was like, excuse me, what? And they were saying, oh yeah, from the ear. And I was like, well, what, like chemtrails or something? Like, tell me more. I'm not really professional when I'm like, you know, I've discovered something about myself. You know, I make a lot of assumptions and ask a lot of personal questions. You know, that's the luxury of playing around with these sessions, right? So anyway, I'll get to, you know, where my journey is, and probably advising other practitioners, you know, don't be me. So it wasn't chemtrails. That was kind of my first, I guess, fear-based jump assumption, right? Lazy. Okay, so it's not chemtrails. It was the vapor smoke. And I was like, he doesn't smoke. But like, no, Joanne, of course not. But he has walked past people who have vaped. And so when he has smelled that has introduced heavy metals to his system. Okay, so, you know, I got rid of those, and he's anyway, it's good, we don't want any of that sort of shit, right? We don't want heavy metals in the body. And part of the heaviness and the actual density that heavy metals create densifies our body, right? And we're trying to uplift our bodies to be able to also help ascend our minds and to be able to give us more expansion. And when we're sort of fighting the soul essence that we have in nurture, which is our mindsets as well, and the physical bodies that we're tethered to, you know, you can't do a push me, pull me sort of dance, right? And I also want to confess that fully dear diary, isn't it called? Brace yourself. Pause now, get a cup of tea. Is I've been eating a little bit of carbs. I think it was after the healing session that I did, where it was releasing all of the, like, healing the people from a verbal abuse and sexual abuse. After that session, I felt this intensity of this density, and then I felt this, you know, almost like a verge of depression for an evening, and it was like so depressing, and I just couldn't understand. Like, I knew it was energy, I knew it wasn't mine, but I just could feel this this big purge energetically. And I think I'd gone to the supermarket, and, you know, I'd actually had gone out and actually absorbed, you know, the masses of energy. But I can also feel it when I'm just sitting here in the comfort of my own home in my pajamas, right? So there's that. And so it actually made me want to start eating junk food. That's how depressed I was feeling. Was like, I just wanted to have a little bit of carbs. And, you know, that doesn't make you feel good. It really doesn't. And from having such a clean system to then kind of falling off the bandwagon and having, you know, some carbs, oh my God, it's just disgusting. And it's not that tasty either, which is, you know, quite good. But anyway, so where have I gone? I've like totally gone off track. So, all right. So I'm not enjoying the carbs. And so anyway, let's go back to when I was learning how to be a practitioner and got super excited and practice on my partner, right? So I knew I was always getting a little bit uncomfortable when I would hear about the death scene from my clients because, it's quite upsetting to hear that they're going through something. They're quite fine, but, it's either tragedy or something. When you're a practitioner and you're learning how to hear, when you're seeing your client talk to you about their life experiences and their death scenes and all this sort of stuff. And sometimes I've had real serious tragedy. And I'm just going to talk about my partner's experience just because he's on my mind. So, I was prepared to hear that there was going to be a death scene of whatever way it was, right, for him, because life regressions, you want to heal the client from everything, and it is an important step in that to find out how they departed, and see what else happens next. And I sort of thought, I'm mature enough to cope with that. And, I want to be able to help him because I knew he had the pain in his wrist and I think his hip or something. I knew I wanted to get out those heavy metals. I had this big list of things that I wanted to be able to get the subconscious to do for him. And so, I was very, very, very motivated. And so, I put on my best practitioner hat until the very first scene, and he's talking about holding some woman's hand and dancing. And I instantly so remember, this is the old Joe, immature, and had a lot of baggage still and a lot of work to do and wasn't as secure as she is today. When I heard that he was dancing with some fucking hoe from another lifetime, I did not cope with that as best as I could. Like, I actually got like triggered through the session. I had to be like, okay, yeah, that's moving on from there then. I didn't do very well, okay, and I can see my mistakes and errors in the way, but ultimately it was just an event because they were going to war, and so this was a country hoedown dance thing, whatever, where they were holding hands and everyone was dancing and having fun. And I love dancing, and he's not he doesn't really like to dance. And so I was like, oh, you danced for her then, did you? Like, I wasn't in the best space, okay? So anyway, and so unfortunately, moving forward through that scene, he died because he was shot in the back by friendly fire. So very, very interesting. And what we learned from that is he was in a New Zealand Army coat, but we didn't discover that until end of last year or something like that. So remember, you have visuals, you get those senses of what you're wearing and all that sort of stuff, even though he may not have said it at the time, because I was such a shit practitioner back then that I didn't explore too much of like the army uniforms and all that sort of stuff, because I don't feel that was as significant as what actually happened to his body. And so there was pain that was associated with that gun injury in this lifetime. So, it all made sort of sense. So anyway, oversharing everything today. So, bear with me. And it was really, really, really interesting. But, it was so interesting. So, we just had that scene where he'd just been killed, right? Or he was injured and killed, and then our baby stirred. And so, I was like, just commanded him, but just enjoy the state of relaxation and be there and, just stay in this relaxed state with no worries, no problems, and I will return quickly. It's super unprofessional, right? You don't just be like, oh, sorry, client, I'm just going to feed your baby, but it was all good, right? Family and all. And, he's very tolerant, thank goodness. He would have to be, right? You'd have to be very patient and very tolerant to be like with this for all this time. So there's that. Bless him. So I went up and fed the baby, and I was thinking about, oh my God, like, he was quite young in that lifetime. And because I wasn't fully confident in all of this and how it was going to feel, like I let my imagination go crazy. And I was like, what if he's like woken up and he doesn't realize that he is Benny, that he thinks he's actually this, he actually thinks that he's the soldier and he's wounded and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm a little bit worried what I'm going to go down to see him being. Like, is he going to be awake? And what if he could bring his consciousness to here and all this sort of stuff? Like I went to town with it, and then, settled the twins in, and I think I was gone for about 5 minutes maybe, which is like, oh my God, so unprofessional. But I feel like they needed me to see how these sessions kind of work. And, I've made a lot of errors on my journey to learn from, where you can really expand upon these sort of sessions. Don't really personally recommend it yourself, but, you do you. I'm just sharing what I've experienced. So anyway, go back down, and he's still in that very relaxed state. He doesn't look like he's moved a muscle at all. And I was like, oh, okay, because I was expecting him to not be like that. So it was very interesting. So then moved him along, and it was seamless. It was seamless. And I even asked him, like, did you notice, like, was that a bother? Like, how did you feel when I had to go and leave? And did you feel concerned and want to attend to our children and all that sort of stuff? And he just said that he was like aware that it was happening, but it didn't bother him at all. Like, he was just in this super, super relaxed state, which every parent with newborn kids and little preschoolers always need, right? So he was living his best and relaxed life there, which is fantastic. It was really, really good. So, it was really, really interesting, his first few sessions, but, he never listened back to the sessions, and we found a whole lot of interesting things. Well, I found a whole lot of interesting things about, like, the foods and, all sorts of bits and pieces. So anyway, blah, 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 blah. So, he has heard little snippets of information, but the fact that he had 2 sessions was quite sort of undeniable for him. I think the first time I did the full session where he had some other lifetimes, and then the second session, I just called him the subconscious, using the key code. And so anyway, he had this horrific dream that made him share it with me. And I shouldn't be like this. I shouldn't be like this, right? But it was so good because it prompted him and triggered him to be sharing this with me. And the other night he said this. So I had a dream after the event, and I was like, tell me more, because there's no point trying to sell someone, information about other people's sessions. Like, I would sort of share a little bit of information with him, but it's kind of, like, we're very much in 3D when I'm not in sessions, and, trying to prepare things and live and be in our now moments, and so and he's very focused on, what we need to focus on today. So he's a very grounding, focused on now kind of guy, which is great for me, right? Because hearing lots of future stuff can really take me away from the current moments, because I'm trying to figure out what's going on and how to prepare and what to do and stuff. So, it works out, it's great teamwork. So his dream was that after the event, which is interesting because, again, when you have dreams or when you have sessions, they're sort of undeniable. Not that he's denying any of this sort of stuff, but he can see very much through what he is noticing where the world's going and how things have changed quite suddenly. And, he was... he's got very like-minded situations to me in terms of our medical choices, and, he can see how the information he can find online about certain events is not being matched up with the media. And that's when he started really noticing stuff. He needed to experience and explore that and research that himself to notice those sort of things. So as a father, and he really wants to make sure that his children have a great future. He is very interested in what they're being exposed to, and all of that sort of stuff. So it is incredible. It really is incredible. Anyway, blah blah blah. Sorry, it feels super personal, but I feel like this is important for people to understand. My own personal journey and helping someone who didn't really believe in reincarnation, and kind of thought we just had one life, and didn't believe that cancer, for example, is a message from your body to sort out something, or address something, or deal with something, or overcome something. And so through talking to him about small things from different sessions, he can sort of start seeing that there's actually great logic in the answers and the messages that the body is sort of sharing. So, it's been very, very, very interesting. Of course, a lot of the stuff that I say sounds utterly woo-woo. You've heard it right as well. It's a lot when you're not so, you're sort of like on the fence. And it has been definitely a journey to explore this together without sort of freaking him out, and without having to try and mansplain and justify all of the nuances of the sessions, because there's a lot of information there. So anyway, so his dream. So I should not be like this, but it was a great thing to be able to explore, right? So I have mentioned to him about, this, what we kind of classify as a laser. And he's like, there is no such thing as a laser that could do that. That's not possible. So he's got that man brain that's very like analytical. And I'm like, well, I think it's just what we call it. Like, I don't know what it really is, but this is like the labeling, the terming of the laser event, but don't know if it's really like how it's been like described in sessions and how it's sort of viewed in sessions. But whatever that I think we've actually acknowledged probably what it really mostly is officially going to be, but we've just sort of like labeled it to be like the laser event. But it is something from the sky, which we have heard has been mounted onto a satellite, and it has gone and sort of scorched the earth. I don't know if even scorching the earth, or gouging the earth, or impacting the earth with high frequency. I don't know whether it's sound or whether because I don't think it's light, but I think when you're viewing it, like I'm not going to pretend that I know exactly how it all kind of works, but we know the results are that there is lines that have been impacted profoundly, and that there is damage done, unfortunately, and there is a lot of exit points for that, and blah 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 blah. So I don't know how much details I've told him about this. It's going to be very upsetting for Americans to have this experience. This is not something that I really appreciated hearing about, because I could understand that once we started sharing this, then lots of people would go into fear and shock and panic, and that's rightfully so. But then we've got to remember what's actually happening to this planet, and that she needs to be what we would also sort of like label as needing to be evacuated. While it may look like exit points, we're still needing to shift our consciousnesses away from being here, because this here is going to be no longer livable or habitable as we know it. So have your own sessions to explore this. And so I knew that when I asked him, what other questions would you like me to ask? He was like, I don't have any questions, because, I'm just focused on today. I'm not really bothered with, future stuff at all. I'm not really bothered with other lifetime stuff at all. Probably one of, practitioners don't like those kind of clients. Just sort of saying it with love, because they're boring. Because it's like, but aren't you interested at all? Don't you have any curiosity? And no, apparently no curiosity, just going with the flow and complete neutral and balance. I mean, test this bitch out, please, because, I've sort of said a few things along the way, and wouldn't it be fantastic for him to prove me wrong, right? That would be so fantastic. I'm comfortable for a bit, but not really, right? Like I'm not afraid to ask anything in these sessions now. So I've grown so much and, have had a blast along the way. So in terms of, respecting him as a client, because I don't want to be like triggering the shit out of him. And I also know the subconscious is going to be like, you've heard him. He doesn't want to know the future. He doesn't want to know all of this sort of stuff, right? So I don't want to get into trouble with the subconscious either. So I'm kind of, cock blocked in every direction. Okay, I hope that anyone who does not need to be listening to this has gone. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, being serious, but not really, in terms of just having fun with these sessions, and sharing this journey with you. Because I know they've told me in the few sessions of my own, stop taking things so seriously, just have fun with it. And so there, I had fun with it. So anyway, the dream, yes, the dream was so good. So what he got a sense of was the dream is that an event happened and he was waiting for, and he's like, you and the kids are not there. He's waiting for these, it's like it wasn't police and it wasn't army, but there was a group of people coming, and everyone who was here were waiting on the street because they knew they were coming, and this was going to give them great sort of hope. And I was like, oh, well, what does that mean? Tell me more about your dream. And it was like, he didn't quite really know, like he was nervous, he was worried, he was concerned. And, they came and everything was going to be like sort of okay. And I was like, that doesn't really like explain much to me. Let's have a session and just see. And also, what else was going on for him? Something else physically. So I was like, let's go and explore that too. And just, let's give you some spa treatment sort of stuff. And so anyway, I was allowed to ask about the dream, which is very cool. And so instead of just using the key code as I could have, even though it has been like, I don't know, since time anymore, maybe well over 2 years ago that I did his last session. So absolutely well over 2 years ago. So I'm trying to think. So anyway, so I could have used the key code then, right? Because they're still forever, and it's not time relevant or dependent when you're using key codes. So just remind yourself of that if you've got one. And so we went through different lifetimes together, and it was really, sort of quite interesting. And there was this one lifetime where he was living in an apartment, and it was like a 2-bedroom thing in the high rise. And, during the day, he does sort of like legal work and a whole lot of other sort of stuff. And then this important day event occurred where he heard this massive sound coming from the sky. And it was like, it wasn't a crashing, it was like an electrical something. So he couldn't describe it, but it was so profound that it got his attention. And he went outside and he could see lots of people on the sort of streets, and there was lots of kind of commotions, and some people were arguing, and he was noticing sort of like the cars were very American looking. That was sort of something he really noticed. Typical guy, right? Cares about the cars. I'm like, what are they talking about? And he's like, oh, he's just focusing on the cars. And I'm just like, boys. Anyway, so and he got so interested that he wanted to go and see what it was on the news. And so, he's watching the news and he's waiting for them to announce something that was big, that had kind of occurred. And so, waiting because, he knows that something huge just happened and it's not coming out on the news, and it's very strange. And then eventually it does. So we're moving forward. And they're showing on TV really blurry, really basic photos of spacecraft. And he's like, I'm not convinced. And it was bothering him because he's like, I know that's not what I heard. That can't be what I heard at all. And it bothers him so much that he goes and actually talks to his neighbors, who he doesn't ever talk to, apparently, to be able to kind of figure out what did you think that was? Because everyone heard it. Everyone heard it. And so it was quite frustrating because no one was believing the main narrative. And when you trust the news and that they give you up-to-date information constantly, why this delay and why this really dodgy, shitty footage of, grainy, basic photo of, an old craft, when if you've just heard something recent now, why is it not in high resolution? Why is it not in video and all of this sort of stuff, right? So it didn't please him to have this excuse and this information. So, it was very frustrating for him. And so, keep moving him forward to find out what was happening next. And this is when his dream merged and he realized that what he was seeing was the scene in his dream where he was on the streets and there was a whole group of, I don't even know what to call them, but it was like concerned citizens who had arms and were checking out how everyone was going and reassuring everyone, we've got this, it's going to be okay, we'll get to the bottom of this. We know that we're not being told the truth. We know that we're not being told the truth by our official governments, and we're not being told the truth by our mainstream media. And so, we've got this, we're all here together, don't worry about it. We're going to sort this sort of thing out. And it was a great relief for him. So it was confusing for him to realize that he had kind of merged back into this dream, because when he was trying to explain it to me in this lifetime he's living now, he thought that it was coming now, and that it was going to be him as his person on our street or in our region and stuff. So it was a little bit sort of confusing for him. You could sense that it all made so much sense, that he was living in that dream and re-seeing this event. And so it was very interesting. And so I was kind of I had my own sort of assumptions about it, but trying not to, because you can really screw up a session if you sort of assume you think you know what's happening, right? So try to really push that away and be, let the subconscious do all the spoiler alerts. Don't try to use any senses to try and have any guessing, because if once you start assuming, then you can just ask questions. Don't give any answers in the sessions, is what I'm sort of trying to suggest to anyone who's trying to do this work. So anyway, so I try to see forward, and it was like, no, this is all I'm getting. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And so, tried to move forward, and there was nothing. And it was like, no, that's it. It's all you're going to get from that life. And it was like, this is very interesting. So anyway, had a few other, I think he had four little lifetimes. And so what they kind of do is, it used to be the classic, you would jump into a new life and explore it, and then have the whole sort of, important days of that life, maybe 3 or 4, and then go to the death scene, and then you'd go to another one, and, have sort of 2 solid lifetimes potentially, depending on what the events are. But sort of now, because the subconscious is like, here's an important thing, here's an important thing, here's an important thing, it may not even be the same lifetimes, right? So that's what we kind of call, I think it's bunny hopping lives, or I can't remember the official one it is. So you've got to be open to it not just being when you move them to another important day, you're going to be still that same person from the last time. You really can't assume anything, right? So it's all very fascinating. And so anyway, so it came time to talk to the Mr. Subconscious. And really interesting, because when I was asking about, so anyway, forgot to say, when I moved him forward to say, so when you do hear it in the news, and you understand it, what do you know? what do you know from that? What do you learn from that? You know, when you do hear it. And her response was, it was a triggering event to turn the atmosphere into a speaker. And so I was like, okay, that's very interesting. A triggering event to turn the atmosphere into a speaker. And I was like, what did the speaker, what was the speaker? Like, what was, was it a sound? Was it music or words? What was it? And he said, no, it was just a big noise, a big noise. And I asked, had you ever heard that big noise before? And then he said, no. And I said, moving forward, do you ever get to hear that big noise again? And he said, no. And then moving forward, there was nothing else in that lifetime, right? So he bunny hopped into where he could see a rat's tail. He was like, am I a rat? Am I a rat? And then, of course, because I'm so mature, I laughed and thought, oh my God, ooh, are you a rat? But no, he was just drunk from a party, and he was laying outside. It was a frat party. So he was drunk outside of a frat party, and there was a rat that was eating near him. So that was fantastic, wasn't it? So yeah, that was very interesting. So anyway, when I was talking to the subconscious about this, about tell me about the event where it was triggering and turning the atmosphere into a speaker, then the subconscious said, well, that wasn't his lifetime. That's happening now. And I said, well, tell me more about that. And they said, oh, it's his parallel lifetime. And I was like, well, where is that? And they said, America. So he has a parallel lifetime who is in America, who got to sense what I believe, I asked the subconscious, you know, this event triggering, turning the atmosphere into a speaker. Could that be, you know, considered anything chaos? Is that event something chaos? Maybe I have, you know, termed something, understood something to be what we literally call the Lazer event. Could that turning the atmosphere into a speaker be that? And so the subconscious said that while that person in that apartment didn't see there a Lazer event, it could be happening at the same time. And so then I was like, well, why would you give him now in New Zealand life, a parallel life, that future forward experience and a dream? Well, of course, to have a session, but it was interesting just to be able to kind of give him clarification that something big is coming and that we need to prepare in certain things. And the only thing that they sort of said that we did need to do is get more bottled water, which, you know, we already had sort of ascertained anyway, because you don't sort of know how long or how much for. And so it was very interesting to know that. So I was like, well, why would you impact him here with this? Like, is he going to hear this triggering event that is going to turn the atmosphere into a speaker? And then the subconscious was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. Tell me more, subconscious. But knowing that this is something that is going to be undeniable for my partner, because he's hearing it through himself and he's already had that dream. And so, you know, you don't want to sort of freak out people with this. But the subconscious was like, you don't need to worry about it, because there's going to be no disasters for you. There's going to be no impact for you. You know, things are going to dramatically change here as soon as it happens. Because, you know, people are going to be confused and there's not going to be an official narrative for it. And suddenly there's just not going to be any things that you can sort of shop for. Everything's just going to come grinding to a halt. So when I was asking about, well, does it, you know, can he, you know, is he still going to go to work? Is, you know, no, of course not. A kid's still going to go to school? No, of course not. You know, because everyone's suddenly realizing that they don't have much to like use or buy, because there is nothing to buy. So whatever you've got sort of stockpiled, that's all you've got, because everything comes to a grinding halt. So it's like, it's really interesting to hear it from a perspective of a person who, you know, doesn't want to buy into or hear or even like consider that there could be something. If it happens in America, does it really happen in New Zealand? Does it really impact New Zealand? Right. And so, you know, of course it will, because the event is so huge. So I asked, will he hear in this, in New Zealand, this event is going to trigger and make the atmosphere into a speaker? And they said yes. So it's very, very interesting. So yeah, it was just a really cool experience to have. And then the rat, when he was an engineer, when he had that rat scene he was studying, and I asked about that obviously in the session too, about the subconscious, and the subconscious said, oh, that was not his lifetime. And I was like, oh, is that a parallel lifetime? And they said yes, but it's not current anymore because that person's expired. And it was really interesting because it was about technology that he was a part of creating, the plans. It all looked like it should have worked, but for some reason it wasn't. And it was to create free communication. And my senses were, this is technology information that someone had stolen or had got access to, was trying to recreate it, but didn't work. It didn't work somehow, because the genius behind this plan, I felt like it was Tesla, but I didn't explore it as much, because from his perspective and from the subconscious's perspective, he was just working in a role and it didn't work. And that was frustrating for him because it just didn't work. So he didn't have the full plans or the pictures or the scope. I asked the subconscious, who was, what was going to be the benefit for humanity with having this free communication. And they said, well, the plan was never to give it freely to people. It was just to be able to have and to own from some sort of corporation or something. So this is so interesting, and I really appreciate being able to, have this experience with him, because we get to talk about it. And because he's such a practical person, he wouldn't care about those other lifetimes, even the parallel ones. He just would think it's really interesting. But in terms of what do we need to prepare for and how do we need to prepare for things, was quite interesting. So, of course, I sort of asked the subconscious, well, how long would this sort of last for? And, the subconscious was very firm about, well, the chaos would finish after 2 months. And I'm like, well, tell me more about what's going to happen after the 2 months. And so, it was like, I can't see that. Subconscious couldn't see after that sort of 2 months. And I was asking about money. Would we still be using money? And for me, it sounded like the subconscious was like, everything's going to be totally fine afterwards. And, I don't know if he's really on board with, the evacuation of a planet as much. How different does a day make, right? So yesterday, he may have sort of thought, no, it's not possible. And today he may have got more senses about it. So it's very interesting how these sessions can really change someone's perspective of understanding. And when I didn't prompt his dream, and he certainly couldn't have imagined having a parallel lifetime in America, experiencing the event that makes the atmosphere a speaker, it's very intriguing. So I'm going to hope that he listens to this session again, because, we think we remember it and then you don't. And so I think it's just really interesting. It helps, of course, when he realizes that it's not his conscious mind or his ego that's coming in and playing and thinking that he's a rat or anything like that. It's it just helps so much for him to have that personal experience, because, me being a client many times and then kind of struggling to get up to speed with some of the information that comes into sessions, I have shared that with him about how, so, gosh, this is not my conscious mind sharing this information. And this is kind of like a big step. I just don't know if I'm ready yet to be able to emerge into it and to apply and to accept it. And that has been an accurate statement for some of the journeys, especially, the evacuation of the planet, and then the laser, same with the broadcast, and we know that these things have been told and had set dates and a certain stuff. And we know that things haven't kind of unfolded but we can see that we're definitely in a different type of world, not a physical different type of world. We're not in the new earth yet, sorry. But look at what's in our cultures now, what's in our societies, and who's having big natural disasters and these bigger events that is, quite unprecedented. We're having massive storms. The last sort of 10 years we've had, always record breaking storms and a whole lot of big events that sort of can't just be coincidences. And as we know from sessions, what is coming is just very, very, very intriguing. Anyway, so yeah, it's just incredible how, because he doesn't want to hear about the future, I couldn't have asked about the Lazer event, for example, just off the cuff, because that was not what he was interested in asking. That was kind of sort of set out. So I sort of assumed, okay, well, if the subconscious wants him to know, the subconscious will squeal and give him everything that he needs to have experiences to know these certain things. And so that's why the dream of his parallel life was given to him. So then we could explore it in sessions, and for him to actually realize and feel the intensity of that confusion and worry and concern. And then this group mentality of everyone, ordinary people coming to sort of support and help you, versus say the official governments or the official police or army or something. So still going to unpack it, but my goodness, isn't it incredible? And so it just always blows me away that the subconscious always knows what the person should be hearing and learning versus what they want to learn and hear. And so, it's so funny, because I have other people who want all big advanced information and don't get it yet, because they're still coming to terms with having peace for certain things that are in their lives. So they're either looping in the past, or they're super, super worried and concerned about the future. And there's problems in their current now that need to be addressed. And so, they're sort of trying to get ahead of themselves. Whereas with my partner, he's just happy-go-lucky guy. And so, living in the now moment. And this is what I think the subconscious is trying to come on, buddy. You're going to have to prepare for it emotionally and mentally. And this is what they said. You are going to be 100% safe, but it's going to be a mind fuck. You have to prepare yourself, because you're going to suddenly start freaking out about the lack of food you think you've got, because you're thinking, we're going to have to live like this for years, and so you're going to start panicking about that sort of stuff, or you can't leave the home because your house is going to be raided and who's going to get you, and it's going to be really that kind of battle within your mind. And so that's what the subconscious said. You need to really prepare yourself mentally to trust you're going to be protected. You're not going to be hunted by other people and robbed and a whole lot of stuff, because that is not how real humans really truly are. And this is what the subconscious was sort of saying, is that people are still going to be people. And so when I sort of asked the subconscious, well, should we get more food supplies for other people, or would that be sort of dangerous to sort of share? And the subconscious said, it is good to share. It always will be good to share. But with our human sort of minds, it could feel like if you let people know we've got all this stock of food, then would they come and take it from us and all that sort of stuff. So, we have to have benefits of that. There are good people. And when you start trading with each other and supporting each other and sharing with each other, then you have that good faith and start having those good relationships. But it didn't sound like we were going to be experiencing that for a long time, because the subconscious was very firm to say 2 months. So, I wanted to ask, well, what's happening after 2 months? And then the subconscious was like, oh, everything's fantastic. Everything's fine. And so I was like, oh, does that mean, what is it? What would call it the shift, or what would happen for humanity? I was trying to get more, and I was probably breaching some of his interests, but the subconscious was like, that's all he needs to know, is that, at 2 months, it's just going to feel a little bit chaotic, but don't run into problems that aren't there. and all this sort of stuff. And I want to say, this isn't going to, like, this was the time frame that they gave us isn't soon. They couldn't, I asked, is it this year or next year? And they can't see years. But it did feel like it was in our sort of more warmer weather months. And so we're coming up to winter. So, I feel like we've still got months ahead for everything to unfold. So it was very, very, very interesting, because, this is just how these sessions unfold. So fantastic. Have intern sessions, ask your subconscious, prepare yourself mentally, prepare yourself physically. There is literally nothing to be worried about. But when you can imagine big things happen, then people can't explain it. Those people who you will meet on your streets, in your communities, who are confused, they're going to have some ray of hope that everything is fine. And I don't know if saying, oh, this is all cool because now we're going to be evacuated from this planet, blah, 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 blah. I don't know what the right words that you're going to say to be able to comfort those people, but just reassuring them that you're there with them and all is well. And that together you can find food and water and keep warm and safe and comfortable. And this is what we have heard about the old earth, isn't it? This really is the old earth time. And so, do not stress about it. You're well prepared. We're all well prepared when we use our metaphysical perspective and have trust and faith that all is unfolding as it needs to be. Okay, I hope I haven't bored you too much with my pondering and excitement of just having these personal experiences with someone who I had always wanted to, and hope that he would have been ready to listen and hear these sort of sessions. And for me, it's an interesting thing when he is more open to having more sessions. So yeah, it's very interesting, but it gives him now security and comfort, knowing that we are safe and it is going to be all well. So anyway, enjoy your days, and much love to you, because all is well. We've heard this hundreds of times, right? So we can start believing that.